Blessed day, everyone. I am Sandino Soliman, the Executive Director of the Caucus of Development NGO Networks, or Code NGO, and I am honored to welcome you to the Code NGO's Social Development Week 2023. This is a 3-day event starting today until October 18 with a mix of online sessions and a hybrid session on 18. With the theme, Facing the Impact of Climate Change on Sustainable Development, this year's event aims to highlight positive narrative experiences through initiatives and best practices, national civil society organizations, alliances, business groups, academe, government, and youth groups on mitigating the impact of climate change, affecting particularly food security, health, and economic development. And we need to make informed decisions not only on to face the impacts of climate change, but also how to live sustainably. So before we start, allow me to acknowledge the team behind the Social Development Week. So for this session, we have Sheena Peña as our floor manager, together with our tech team, Luigi Alfonso. Sheila Barra is our Facebook Live community manager. So we're also streamed live in Facebook today. Welcome to our viewers on Facebook through the Caucus of Development NGO Network's Facebook page. Brian Gonzalez is the documenter. For the participants in the Zoom, should you have any concerns, feel free to send our message to our Zoom community manager, Kat Leodique. So for this morning's eTalk learning session topic, hashtag Youth for Climate Change. The future is now, where we will focus on youth's engagements on the impacts of climate change. Our speakers are very powerful speakers for today. Mitzi Jonelle of Youth Advocates for Climate Action Philippines, or YACAP, who will be joined by Vingie Dahan of the Hiraya Youth from Mindanao. So Mitzi is a full-time climate justice activist based in Metro Manila. She is the convener and international spokesperson of YACAP. So baka nakita niyo na siya sa mga social media habang nagkikipag-negotiate sa mga iba't ibang international representatives sa usapin ng climate change. A strong voice on anti-imperialism, anti-colonialization, and the intersectionality of the climate crisis, she is committed to changing the system and building a world that prioritizes people and planet, not profit, through collective action. Hi, Mitzi. Welcome. And hello.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. So, sige. We'll hear from you in a while, and I'll introduce your fellow youth advocate. Together with Mitzi, we also have Vingie Dahan of the Hiraya Youth from all the way from Kidapawan, Bukidnon. Gikan sa Bukidnon. She will share their experiences on the rights of nature advocacy. Hiraya Youth is one of the organizations that pushes for the Rights of Nature Bill together with the Rights of Nature Network that is supported by the Philippine Miserior Partners Incorporated and Caritas International, Caritas Philippines. Hi, Vingie. Hello. Okay, sorry, can we hear your wonderful voice again? Yeah. Pa-unmute lang.
Hello po. Good
Yan.
morning.
Good morning. Alright. Mayang buntag. Okay, so thank you, Vingie. Once again, welcome everyone. So to start the ball rolling, I'll give the floor to Mitzi. Mitzi, please take it away.
Hi everyone. Share lang ko ng screen. So, maraming salamat para dun sa introduction na nangyari. Check ko lang, okay lang mag-Filipino for everyone or meron bang mas okay kung nakakaintindi naman lahat ng Filipino? Does everyone understand Filipino? Sabi sa chat if you don't. Please say in the chat if you don't understand Filipino. Okay. So the role of youth in climate justice. English naman yung slides, pero mag-Filipino ako from time to time. So outline lang tayo ng konti. What is the climate crisis? What is climate justice? Who are the youth? And why should the youth lead? And then last is, what can we actually do? So, kanina sa videos, medyo narinig na natin, di ba? Medyo na explain na sa atin kung ano ba yung climate crisis. Pero let's look at it in a very Filipino context also. So the climate crisis is basically understanding that the disaster is already here. Climate change isn't something that's happening in the future. It's already happening today. And the catastrophe is looming. So the Philippines is already experiencing the worst effects of the current 1.2 degrees Celsius increase in global temperatures. This means na yung global average temperature ng ating planet ay since the 1800s during the industrial times na biglang nag-increase yung carbon dioxide emissions, naka-additional 1.2 degrees Celsius na tayo averagely. And this has already impacted millions of people here in the Philippines and billions across the world. According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, we're likely to exhaust our 1.5 degrees Celsius carbon budget. So ito yung sinasabing limit ng mga climate scientists na 1.5 degrees Celsius daw within the next decade, which is by 2030, if emissions do not drastically decrease within the next few years. If further global temperature rise is not prevented, the problems brought upon by climate change will have even more disastrous and even more catastrophic consequences, especially considering that the Philippines were already one of the most vulnerable countries to the climate crisis. So our country contributes around 0.37% to global greenhouse gas emissions, yet I think the latest reports of the German Climate Risk Index puts us at the second most vulnerable to the devastating impacts of the climate crisis. So what does this look like for us as Filipinos? As young Filipinos, nakita na natin lalo yung mga pagbabaha, yung sea level rising, yung mas malalang mga bagyo, mas madalas na bagyo, andyan rin yung mga tag-init na sobrang init na it's really actually affecting especially children and elderly. And to make matters worse, it's understanding that the climate crisis isn't just an environmental problem, right? It's not just the typhoons, it's not just the heat waves, it's also that we're not able to adapt to the climate crisis. So the lack of financial, institutional, and technological capacity and access to knowledge, and that there isn't a disproportionate impact among economically marginalized areas or yung mga the poor or the urban poor, the small farmers, the small fisher folk, the indigenous peoples, and the working class. The climate crisis, it exacerbates existing inequities in health status and access to adequate food, clean water, and other resources. And we are also one of the most dangerous countries in the world for environmental defenders and activists. According to the latest reports of Global Witness, for the past 12 years, I believe, we have been the most dangerous country in Asia for environmental defenders and activists. So now we talk about what is climate justice. We call for climate justice in the recognition of the intersectional nature of the climate crisis and how issues, especially class, but also gender, race, etc., can make the impact of climate change worse and can be made worse by climate change. A very concrete example na to ay noong 2013 with Typhoon Yolanda, dahil na-devastate ng sobra yung isang region ng Philippines, young girls and women were forced into prostitution because there was no other economic way to support themselves after the destruction of the typhoon. So dito nakikita natin na yung climate crisis, yung bagyo, pinalala niya yung existing na gender and class injustice na nangyayari dun sa area na yun kasi they were forced into this kind of work. And so that's one very concrete example. Diba? Another example that focuses on gender and class also is during times of evacuation, women and children are more prone to violence and harassment. And we're also seeing that across the world, women and children are among the most vulnerable to the climate crisis. And then wala pa dun sa statistics na inaaral yung impacts ng climate crisis sa queer or sa LGBT peoples. So it's even like we don't even know kung ano yung consequences kasi hindi siya inaaral. Kasi hindi siya pinag-aaralan, hindi siya pinaglalaanan ng oras para maaral. Climate justice also considers the fact that there are countries that are more responsible for climate change, and usually these are the ones least affected by it. There's a common but differentiated responsibility, which means na lahat tayo may nakakontribute sa climate change, pero iba yung bigat ng responsibility kasi iba rin yung contribution. And kailangan ma-resolve yung climate crisis, meaning the ones more responsible countries, companies, individuals have to do more. We also see how the Philippines' colonial past and semi-colonial present is responsible for the crisis character of climate change here in our country, since we cannot adapt easily to climate change. So this is something in the latest IPCC, or Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change special report that was released, I think last year, the latest report nila. They mentioned very explicitly there that colonialism and our past of colonialism and the lasting impacts and effects of colonialism have contributed to the vulnerability of countries to the climate crisis. And so it's even like the UN's biggest body of climate scientists have already proven that this is, what civil society and what people have been saying for the longest time is true, that colonialism and how they have stunted our growth as a country, how they steal our resources, has contributed to the climate crisis and our vulnerability to it. So we must also fight these issues if we want to genuinely resolve the climate crisis in the long term. Climate justice also means holding accountable countries, corporations, and people who are the main polluters of the planet. So historically, the US is the biggest polluter, and China is currently the biggest polluter. And in both geopolitics, we also see how the US and China are contributing a lot to what's happening, to the environmental destruction that's happening in the Philippines. We have US military bases that are being set up in the Philippines. We have at least 4 new ones this year pa lang. And we've seen in the past, in the US military bases that we had in the past, nagkakaroon ng toxic waste, nagkakasakit yung mga people around, and the destruction of the environment becomes rampant talaga. We also see with the US, for example, the US military it is the single institution that has the highest emissions across the world. It has more emissions than several countries combined. Iba pa yun dun sa kinakount ng emissions ng US, kasi yung military emissions in the global sphere, hindi siya kinakount unless voluntarily magpa-count yung country. So hiwalay pa yung US is already historically the biggest, tas hindi pa nakakount yung US military nila na alone is also one of the biggest or the biggest single institution actually. And so we're really seeing the destruction of the environment that's caused by these two countries. And with China, we're seeing the reclamation projects, the large mega dams, a lot of the mining that's also happening, and destruction is coming from these places. In 2021, and Oxfam released a report, and they're about to release a report this year as well, I believe, that the 1% richest across the world contribute more than half than the 50% poorest. And I want to really emphasize this, that it really is the 1% richest that is causing the climate crisis. And between 1988 and 2015, only 100 companies were responsible for 71% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So that means that even if the rest of us in the world change, if at least these 100 companies do not change, it's not going to do much. And now we go to the question of who are the youth. Pero ina muna ko. So especially when I was starting out as a climate activist, which was around 2018, 2019, 2017, around those years. Lagi akong tinatanong, why is the youth leading? What are the youth? What is the role of the youth? And I actually did not know how to answer it in the beginning of my activism. But then we see that, according to PSA, or the Philippine Statistics Authority, the youth are the 15 to 30-year-olds. And the projected population of Filipino youth in 2020 is 29,974,800. And so marami tayong kabataan sa Philippines. And I think the special thing about young people also is that we're present in different classes of society, mostly from the basic sectors of farmers and workers. But that just means that when the youth unite, because they're young teachers, they're young singers, they're young actors, they're young scientists, they're young business people. When young people unite, we're basically uniting the entirety of society. And why should the youth lead it? Because it's our turn in the relay race. There's a common quote that goes, activism is not a race. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. So it's a very long road of activism. And then someone elevated that quote and said, it's not just a marathon, it's a relay race from one generation to the other, na pinapasa on yung baton. And so it's our turn, and we possess the physical and mental energy to grasp environmental issues and act on them collectively. And I used to not believe in this. I was like, talaga ba? Parang hindi naman ako super energetic. But then it really is different when talking to older environmental groups. There is so much knowledge there, but then in the general public of talking about the generational aspect, mas prone talaga yung younger people to care about issues that's happening in our country and across the world, especially because we know that we are the ones who will be impacted by these the longest. And so we voice out our concerns and we influence popular knowledge and opinion. And the young people are a revolutionary generation. So in every moment in history and society, we've actually seen how young people the young people of that generation changed the way that our world works, right? So the young people alongside the most marginalized sectors of society in every moment in history has changed things. And so it's our turn for this now. And what can we do? So I'll talk about what we do as YACAP now. So YACAP, which is Youth Advocates for Climate Action Philippines, is a nationwide alliance of youth organizations and young individuals that advocate for immediate global climate action. We were convened in August 2019, and YACAP believes that the youth, alongside the most impacted sectors of society, should lead the ongoing global struggle against the climate crisis. So we are an alliance of youth organizations and young individuals. I think that's very special, actually, because then we have mga student councils sa mga universities, sa mga high schools, and nadadala nila yung climate aspect dun sa kanilang work as student councils. We also have organizations that are pre-medical societies. So they come at the climate crisis from the lens of health. We have youth organizations that are art students, and so they they're writers, so they come to they bring the skills of writing and creativity into the conversation of climate, and that's how they talk about the climate crisis. So you don't have to be an environmental organization to join YACAP. You just have to want to talk more about climate and agree with the 5 points of unity, which are climate justice, urgency of climate action, youth-led collective action, defense of environmental defenders, and system change. Some of the things that YACAP has done over the years, and this isn't an extensive list, but basically really sounding the alarm for a climate emergency. As young people, we hold campaigns to give emphasis to this urgency, such as participating and organizing during the global climate strike. So because we're part of an international network and movement of the Fridays for Future, connected to Greta Thunberg, if you are familiar with her. We have these global climate strikes every year, and we hold actions to demand our leaders to put a stop to environmentally destructive projects, especially fossil fuel projects and projects that displace marginalized people, such as environmental defenders. We also focus a lot on climate education, since many of the most affected communities are also the ones with least access to education. So we coordinate with these communities so we can both learn from their experiences in the front lines, as well as augment their existing knowledge with scientific data to highlight the need for national multi-sectoral climate action. So this means that we go to small farming communities, small fishing communities, working class communities. We haven't gone to any indigenous communities lately since the pandemic, kasi nag-pandemic. Pero before the pandemic, we were doing that a lot as well. Tapos we learn about their experiences, and then we have an exchange of knowledge, and then we create climate modules that are contextualized to their experience. Because I don't know about you guys, pero my education around climate in school, and this is for those who are already privileged enough to have access to education, was very foreign and technical and Western. Na it talked about melting ice caps and polar bears, not about the experiences that we were already experiencing as Filipinos here in the Philippines. And so webinars like this one that Code NGO is creating, but also other forms of educational aspects in other schools and with organizations, with students, etc., is something that's so important. We also give a deeper and more extensive session on climate science. Parang I think that takes 2 hours alone. Now we also have deeper and more extensive slides and discussions around the youth movement, around land reform and national democracy, and around like standard issues of the day, what's happening today, as well as climate science, as well as more in depth of the 5 points of unity, why those 5 points are so crucial and important, what climate justice looks like, and things like that. So if you guys ever want or need resources like that, that's more in depth beyond these like shorter slides and conversations, then we can definitely set that up for you and your students. We were also in dialogues with the Department of Education to institutionalize climate education as a curriculum before the recent regime change. Something that we've also done in the past are divestment campaigns. So this means that we target institutions that fund fossil fuel industries, and this is such a strong and important type of campaign because you really attack the source of the climate crisis. What we did here was we led a globally coordinated campaign where we targeted Standard Chartered Bank, which is a UK based bank, and then dito sa Philippines, and they're the ones who fund the most fossil fuel companies in the Philippines, but also in other countries in the world, like in Indonesia, India, Australia, several countries in Africa, several countries in Latin America. And so what we did was we connected with young people from all those countries, and we did a 1-year globally coordinated campaign, both online and in-person protesting in front of the office of the bank, which is a UK-based bank. So we also had activists from London there, but also doing online actions together. And after a year of campaigning, they changed their coal policy so that they're not investing as much in fossil fuel companies. And a smaller scale example and a more localized example of this can be, especially for those that study in private schools, you can try to figure out where your school is investing money, where they're investing your tuition that you're paying them basically, and see if they're investing it in fossil fuels or any environmentally destructive projects or environmentally destructive companies. This is a common tactic in the US, for example, where a lot of the big universities actually invest a lot in fossil fuels. And so they've been getting universities to stop doing that kasi alam nga naman you're studying for your future and investing in your future. Tapos the school that you're investing in decides to invest that in something that destroys your future. So I think that's a very powerful conversation to have. Something that we need to remember is that collective action is key. With such a big problem in front of us, we need coordinated and organized action to change society for the better. We have a systemic problem at our hands, and so we need a systemic solution. Individual action can help, but if we do not recognize and act on the fact that only a select few countries, companies, and individuals are responsible for the overwhelming majority of the planet's destruction, we will not achieve the change that we need. We need system change and not climate change. And we need to understand that climate justice is social justice. Again, it's not just an environmental issue. It's a systemic issue affecting the most marginalized people the most. Thank you. And if you want to get in touch, we are on social media at YACA Philippines, YACA Philippines. on all social media, and I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Mitzi Jonelle. And I'll also put our website into the chat. And if you want to join YACAP as an alliance or as an individual, then the link is in the chat as well. Thank you so much. And I believe I'll be
Thank you.
handing it over now to Vingie from Hiraya Youth.
Thank you, Mitzi. Right, go ahead, Vingie. Okay. We'll fix that in a while, Vingie.
Okay na po.
Okay.
Narinig po ako.
Yes, narinig. Thank you.
Makita yung share screen ko po.
Yes.
So, hello, good morning, everyone. I am Vingie Dahan from the Rights of Nature P8, Hiraya Youth. So, to start, what is Hiraya Youth? Hiraya Youth is a group of youth advocates for the rights of nature. So, what is the rights of nature? This is a brief introduction. The rights of nature is a developing perspective and at a growing global movement advocating respect and protection of the environment by recognizing that nature has intrinsic value and dignity just like humans. Their rights and life are intertwined and both have rights. The law should recognize that nature and ecosystems are right-bearing entities or has legal personality. Okay. Mamaya mag-move. Sorry po.
Okay. While Vingie is fixing her presentation. So we actually think we actually want to acknowledge yung ayan na, sorry. Vingie, you okay?
Visible na po.
Yes. It's here. You can see Rights of Nature Growing Global Movement.
Oh no. Okay. Ay, ito po. So again, resume tayo. So the history or timeline of rights of nature, there is an increasing number of court rulings and legislation worldwide that are recognizing rights of nature to be protected and preserved. So rights of nature isn't just happening right now, but also before. Recognizing these rights also entails the recognition that nature has the right to stand in court and to be represented for its defense. So, hindi lang po tayong human beings ang may right to be represented at court. So, the Rights of Nature PH campaign milestones and time frame. So, 2018 was the campaign launch of the Rights of Nature, and by 2019, the Rights of Nature Philippines movement was established already. And during 2020 to 2022, there are orientations, camps, and other activities that involve our campaign in rights of nature. So para saan ang Rights of Nature campaign? So for the continuing ecosystem destructions on land, mountain, forest, because of chemicals, deforestation, and mining. So, like what Miss Mitzi said a while ago, climate change is happening already. It is not something na mangyayari pa in the future. So, continuing environmental destruction on seas and rivers because of dumping of waste and chemicals, and the infamous Pasig River, who topped one on the global top 10 list of plastic emitting rivers. This is a top one na hindi natin gusto for the Philippines. And the loss of biodiversity, our species are slowly on extinction. The continuing environmental destruction are the air pollution because of toxic smoke and greenhouse gases, and the impact of climate change on wildfires, droughts, and heat waves, melting ice caps, and strong typhoons. So, climate emergency, we declare clearly and unequivocally that the planet Earth is facing a climate emergency. The world's people face untold suffering due to the climate crisis unless there are major transformations to the global society in the way we relate to nature. The climate change and or destruction of the Earth system is largely man-induced or anthropogenic, so just because of us human beings. So rights of nature campaigns doesn't only happen in the Philippines, but also worldwide. So in Pennsylvania, Mexico, Ecuador, Bangladesh, New Zealand, etc. So, ang kalikasan ay may karapatan na mabuhay, to exist and thrive, lumago at dumami, regenerate and flourish, magkaroon ng tanging lugar-bahay or habitat, may sa katuparan ang kakanyahan batay sa kanyang natural na paglago, at may karapatan ang ilog, dagat, bundok, kagubatan, hayop, at puno. So, lahat tayo may karapatan, including our nature kasi it exists also. So, it is the holistic recognition that all life, all ecosystems on our planet are deeply intertwined. All life, including human life, are deeply connected. Decisions and values are based on what is good for the whole. So, it asserts that there are a lawful order to the universe that maintains a web of life. Humans must adapt their legal, political, economic, and social system to be consistent with the way the natural order actually works, rather than fighting against this lawful order and trying to force nature to conform to human will. The human societies will only be viable and flourish if they regulate themselves as part of this wider Earth community and do so in a way that is consistent with the fundamental laws or principles that govern how the universe functions, which is the great jurisprudence. So, ang Rights of Nature campaign ay ang kambyo sa pananaw at gawi sa ugnayan ng tao sa kalikasan. Rights of Nature is a call to a paradigm shift in the way we view, treat, and behave towards nature. So, there is a comparison on what view Rights of Nature has and what industrial paradigm views. So first, nature for rights of nature, nature has rights to exist, thrive, regenerate, flourish, have a habitat or home, and maintain its vital cycles. But for modern industrial paradigm, only humans have rights. Only us human beings have the right to exist, to thrive, to regenerate, to flourish. Uh, it doesn't include the rights of the nature. And second is that for the rights of nature, it believes that our ecosystems, including trees, oceans, animals, mountains, should become right-bearing entities just like us human beings. But on the other hand, for the modern industrial paradigm, natural and juridical persons are the only entities that can protect itself from violations or their rights and appear in the court of law. So it is very contrasting to the views of the rights of nature. Next are for the rights of nature, we are interconnected and interdependent in the web of life, contradicting to the modern industrial paradigm that views that we are different, separate, and most important species. We human beings are the most important species in this earth. Um, for the rights of nature, we are nature. We come and we evolve from the same source. But for the modern industrial paradigm, nature is outside us. They are property to be used and owned for the benefit of humans. They are they are raw materials to produce commodities to earn huge profits. So if we compare these views from the rights of nature and modern industrial paradigm, it is very contrasting, and this modern industrial paradigm is very anthropocentric. It um it focuses on human beings alone. Uh, for the rights of nature, we are co-stewards and co-keepers, so we coexist with the nature. For the modern industrial paradigm, we are the owners. So we should live in harmony with nature and decide according to what is good for all. But in the view of the modern industrial paradigm, we decide what happens to our property, which is the nature, and use it to the fullest in the name of progress. So where do rights originate? Rights originate where existence originates. That which determines existence determines right. Right is defined as giving every being its due. This is by Thomas Perry, 2001. So you have the right when you exist. So it is it is right to say na because nature exists, it should have rights just like what us human beings have. So one's existence carries with it a role and function in the whole web of life. Human rights are subsets of a constellation of rights belonging to every member of the Earth community. When the United Nations drafted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the drafting committee observed that the supreme value of the human person did not originate in the decision of worldly power, but rather in the fact of existing. So for IP cosmology interconnectedness, one of the central tenets of indigenous cultures is the belief in the immortality of soul. For most indigenous cultures, because of the soul does not die but rather transmigrates from human to animal or plant or higher spirit forms, and because the soul is capable of living in natural entities such as rivers, mountains, the earth, and etc., both the animate and the inanimate are revered. So the evolution of rights from the 18th century, there are political and civil and political rights, or the animal rights. For the 19th century, economic, social, cultural rights, abolition of slavery. In the 20th century, there's collective rights, women's rights to suffrage. 21st century now, the environmental rights or the rights of nature. Rights of nature is a call to a paradigm shift in the way we appreciate, treat, behave, tr- treat and behave towards nature, and recovering the paradigm of connectedness and interdependence or kinship with nature in all aspects of life and social systems. A change in the current social systems and economic, political, legal, and social cultural that impoverishes and destroys people and nature. Working towards an ecocentric economic, legal, and governance systems and the promotion a sustainable culture of the path lifestyle. So, ecological conversion, living in harmony with nature. The framework should be we are not just protecting nature, we are nature, a recognition of profound significance, given that it's the belief that we are separate from the earth that resides at the root of the furthest a destructive relationship to the natural world. So, this framework says that we are not just protecting nature, but we are nature. We are part of nature. So, it is our job to protect it. So, we are nature. Everything is connected. We must recognize that we are intertwined and part of nature. Nature has intrinsic rights just like us people. Change the very core of our economic, social, cultural, and legal framework towards adhering to the natural laws of the earth. To recognize the nature has intrinsic rights that are inevitably linked to not only to human but other species. Nature is not mere property or infinite. Challenge the idea that Earth's living systems are property and it is infinite, and the large scale and industrial extraction of pollution of natural systems and function. Man is not above nature, challenging the prevailing worldview that places humans above nature and with domination. So, man and nature should coexist, should be on the same level. So advocacy goals of the rights of nature. For the economic goals, explore and craft alternative development paradigm. For the legal goal, push a new legal framework, nature as legal entity. Political, advocate for eco-governance for the LGUs and agencies. Cultural, embrace and live a sustainable or sapat lifestyle for the individuals, educational and cultural institutions. So we explore and craft an alternative economic development paradigm. What actions do we need to do? Engaging NEDA or NEDA and participating in PDP planning, participation in regional development councils, participation in local barangay level development planning. For the new legal framework, for the nature having legal rights or earth jurisprudence, the actions needed are pushing for national laws, crafting local ordinances and resolutions, advocate for ecocentric governance. The needed actions are lobby for plans, projects, and policies with local executives, LGUs, national, regional, and local government agencies. Promotion for values of sustainable or sapat lifestyle. So we advocate for living a sustainable life or the sapat lifestyle from individual level to family to community and the organizations and institutions where we belong, especially schools and universities. So sapat, enough, sufficient, adequate, sustainable, and lifestyle way of living. So sapat lifestyle. We are all the needs and rights of all creation are fulfilled. So be an environmental defender, be an eco warrior, be an earth angel. So how do we do this? First, speak up. Discuss with your family and relatives and friends. Measure to help protect the environment in your home and community. Second, post it. Invent and organize creative actions and social media postings for the protection of Mother Earth. Since we are all active in social media, might as well use this medium for our advocacy. And then third, write to lawmakers to support the Rights of Nature bill and our leaders to make policies and projects protecting nature. So we need help from higher people. Next is pull the plug. Conserve energy, manage use of air conditioned, turn off lights when not in use. So we can help protecting our nature or be an environmental defender with our own simple ways. Relate with nature, have pets, cultivate plants at home or community garden, and eco travel, ride public transport, carpool, ride a bicycle. So the simple ways we can help in defending our nature. Renewables now. Use renewable energies, efficient light bulbs, refuse, reuse, and recycle. Refuse single plastic use, reusable basket bags, and water bottles and jugs. So here in our school, we're not allowed to use single-use plastic. So we are encouraged to bring our own water bottle and conserve water, reduce water waste, use water rate. So towards the future, we are all creation live, thrive, and flourish together in one common home. Home for all, renewing the oikos of God. Seasons of Creation 2021. The Rights of Nature Youth Camp. So we, as we advocate for the rights of nature, we happen to have youth camp. So last year we had an online camp, a month-long online camp that is held during weekends since we have classes. Um, we did environmental activities. We go place to place. We plant trees. We had tree planting activities and such. So the very recent camp, the Rights of Nature Youth Camp, Youth Evolving with Nature, the Rights of Nature in partnership with PETA and PETA Lingap Sining, welcomes the Rights of Nature Youth creative leaders from various organizations in a special workshop. So this camp was held at Phillips Sanctuary, Pestano Farm, Sitio Palinglingan, Barangay San Juan, Antipolo, Rizal on August 1 to 5, 2023. So this is a 5-day camp. There are 7 participating hubs from the different parts of the country: NCR, Bohol, Marinduque, Cagayan de Oro, Kidapawan, Zamboanga Peninsula, and Dipolog. So I was one of the campers during that Rights of Nature camp. The workshop during the camp involves acting, dancing, singing, and other art mediums that awakens the creativity of the participants. One of the takeaways from the camp was that we, the youth, are now more interested in art. Might as well use these creative mediums on our campaign for the rights of nature. So we make it creative so that we could encourage more youth join us in our campaign. So these are some photos from the that happened from the camp. So during the last day of the camp, aside from showcasing the talents of the participants through a short culmination, every hub were also tasked to create future action plans, long-term plans as response to the climate justice and the promotion of the rights of nature using what they've learned within the 5 days, the very highlight of the whole camp. So what happened after the camp? The different hubs have made their moves and the plans they've made during the camp was taken into action. So the Marinduque cluster, Marinduque Council for Environmental Concerns or MASIC youth engaged in tree planting, mangrove planting, cleanup drives, gathering of trashes of Kabugao, Libtangin River, and re-echo of rights of nature. From Bohol cluster, Bilar Youth Environmental Ambassador or Bilar in Bohol engages in eco-friendly habits and campaigning, making them an effective weapon for beneficial outcomes. Bilar conducted youth camps, cleanup drives, workshops, and re-echoing youth involvement with nature and attending the committee meeting and deliberation of a proposed ordinance regulating the use of glyphosate-based chemicals in Bilar Bohol and providing penalties for violation thereof. From Zamboanga Peninsula Cluster, Catholic Youth Ministry or CYM in Zamboanga or Zamboanga Peninsula started the campaign by conducting orientations and symposia about the rights of nature and Laudato Si, and other activities during the Earth Day and Laudato Si Week. From the NDKCCS Rights of Nature Eco Warriors or Kidapawan City Mindanao Hub, the Notre Dame of Kidapawan College Community Extension Services or NDKCCES Rights of Nature Eco Warriors support the implementation of the Laudato Si program in school. We have engaged in the Narratory growing and parenting program in the adopted Laudato Si Eco Park since October 13, 2021. That was the last 2 years. During the season of creation, we commit to promoting environmental protection and helping advocate the rights of nature by sharing about rights of nature among MVTP trainees and in our CES adopted community. We plan to conduct an orientation on the rights of nature and Laudato Si's in collaboration with the CMRE and CES of the school. So additional, the declaration of climate emergency, the Kidapawan Marble and Cotabato Kidmaco cluster under the Philippine Mysterious Partnership, a non-government organization that upholds environmental care and intergenerational responsiveness, declares a climate change emergency in response to the growing urgency of addressing the ongoing climate crisis. We acknowledge the gravity of the situation and the urgent need for collective action to mitigate the negative impacts of the climate change. So these are just some of the actions and initiatives done by the Hiraya youth after the camp, and there are more to come. So I would be playing a video that we made during the Rights of Nature camp at Antipolo. It is a song composed by the campers as one of their creative outputs during the camp. The song has verses in different dialects, Bisaya, Chavacano, and Tagalog, which makes it more amazing as it represents diversity with one common goal. But disclaimer, it's not that perfect because we just composed it right before the performance. May makita kayo na video po?
Hi, Vingie. Wala pa.
Okay. Wait lang po, I'll fix it.
Excited na kami.
Saan?
Anyway, pwede mo siguro i-stop share yung yung presentation. And then ma-share mo yung play na video with the sound off.
So play ka na po.
Okay. Dapat ba may sound na siya? Vingie?
May sound po.
Wala po. Try mo i-click yung share screen na green. Tapos meron doon share sound na option doon sa lower left yata na parang check mark.
Layo naman. Wait lang po.
Okay. Take 2.
I-share ko na lang po yung link.
Sige, please. And then we'll handle it.
Ayan po.
So Mitzi, Vingie.
Po.
Vingie. Habang hinihintay natin yung video, can you tell us more about Hiraya Youth? Saan kayo based? Saka network ba kayo ng network po ba kayo
Hiraya,
ng organizations dyan? Or isa lang kayo organization? Yes.
Hiraya Youth po is under PMPI or the Philippine Ministerial Partnership INC. So we are the youth advocate for the rights of nature. So this is a nationwide campaign. There are different hubs. I am personally from Kidapawan City Hub. We are from a school, Notre Dame of Kidapawan College. So there are other hubs nationwide, I mean, from NCR, Marinduque, Bohol, Cagayan de Oro, Zamboanga. So we are from the whole Philippines. So,
Alright. Sige. So, I think nakita na nila yung video link. Ayan. So, let's watch this first.
Wala na mga
All right. Thank you very much, Vingie. Was that the end of your presentation, or
Yes,
is there
po.
anything else? Okay.
That was
Thank you.
the end of my presentation.
Oo, sige. So I think we can invite Mitzi also to open her cam. Yeah. And Vingie. Yeah. Okay.
Vingie. Thank you for sharing your and Hiraya's insightful experiences on advocating the rights of nature. And thank you, everyone. I hope we've picked your interest at this point because we have reached the exciting part, yung questions and comments part. And Vingie and I will try our best to answer them. And we already have some questions, both from the registration form and from the Zoom room. So we'll start with the ones from the registration form. And I guess the first question is, what can the youth and or private citizens do to help in calamity response, food supply sustainability, peace, and or reducing waste? Vingie, if you wanna answer first, I'll answer after.
Is it okay if you go first po?
Sige, send ko rin yung questions sa chat so everyone can see it. But, so as YACAP, what we do is, pag tuwing may bagyo, nagko-call kami for relief operations. So, nagpapa-donations and then nag-coordinate kami with mga community organizers. Tapos, if nandun kami on ground, so we have chapters in North Central Luzon, NCR, South Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Tas aside from the member organizations pa. If nandun kami on ground, pupunta kami on ground sa community mismo, tas tutulong sa pag-disperse ng pagkain. If wala, then yung community organizers lang. We've been doing this since 2020, I believe, 2020, kasi we started August 2019. 2020, nag-start na kami mag-relief operations, both during times of typhoons, pero also during Yung recent na Mindoro oil spill, we also did relief operations nung time na yun. And then, nung time ng pandemic na nahirapan yung mga mangingisda at saka magsasaka, nag-relief operations din during that time. For food supply sustainability, I guess similar to that sense na we also advocate and work a lot with our small farmers and small fisher folk to ensure yung farm to table type of relief operations din. So yung mga relief operations namin, yung dinadala namin sa mga communities ay galing diretso from the farmers or the fisher folk din mismo. We also, of course, advocate for policies that will better our food security. So that means junking rice liberalization law. That means bettering our fisheries policies. And in terms of peace, we also have a campaign that is called Climate Justice is Peace, which focuses on the anti-militarization of our rural areas, seeing that we're one of the most dangerous countries in the world for environmental defenders and activists. And in the rural areas, we're actually seeing bombings, killings by the military of our indigenous peoples. And so this is something that we campaign a lot on. We're also part of different councils and alliances that push for peace talks in our country so that we can address the roots of the armed conflict, so that in the end, what we want is peace. And we see that climate justice is about peace. It's about making sure that people are secure, people are safe. And Vingie, do you want to answer?
So for the food supply sustainability on the rights of nature perspective is we promote tapat lifestyle. So we start in our homes or individually that we should live, have a sustainable way of life, like we plant on our garden so that we could have our own crop. And for the peace and or reducing waste, they call this the 3 R's, of course, they're use, reduce, and recycle. But in the rights of nature, we refuse, reuse, and recycle. So refuse single plastic use, reusable basket bags, and water bottles and jugs. So refuse, reuse, and recycle.
Thank you. Next question that we have is, how can we go beyond the classroom? And how can we engage yung mga out-of-school youth?
So for the out of school youth, we have I'll be specific in our school and the KC, we have MVTP program that involves the youth from our adopted community, schools adopted community here in Kidapawan City. So we have programs that teaches them. It's like parang nag-free education po. There are programs na we teach them livelihood lessons para to involve them in this kind of advocacies po.
Thank you, Vingie. Sa amin naman sa YACAP, we regularly bring our youth members who are majority students to mga frontline communities like small farmers, small fisher folk, worker communities, urban poor communities, so that we can learn actually from these frontline communities. So it's also understanding that it's not just us who can teach them something, pero these community organizers, the ones who are on the front line of climate change and actually already experience it, marami din silang mga napilitan na sila mag-adapt. So meron silang mga adaptation measures na we can really learn from. And dun sa pag-engage ng out-of-school youth, yeah, it's a similar case kasi most of the small farmers, small fisher folk, and urban poor youth are out of school. And so we talk to them, we learn from them, and then we also do an exchange of knowledge with them. We do this quite regularly. Siguro, we go to several communities every year, parang almost once every 2 months or minsan once a month yung pagpunta namin.
All right. Ako naman may isa pang question from coming from yun sa mga na-send in na. So, sa palagay ba ninyo, may collaborative efforts ba both sa government and private sector responsive to climate change causing disasters in the Philippines, siguro, focused on. And also from your perspective as the youth, anong tingin niyo dito sa collaboration between the government, private sector, tulong-tulong sa pag-address ng climate change issues? So who would want to go first? Sige. Mitzi, would you would you like to have a crack at that?
Pwede naman. So we're seeing that there is a lot of collaboration between more of civil society. So private sector is a vague term. So private sector includes yung mga companies, but it also includes yung mga civil society, mga NGOs,
Yeah.
mga nonprofits, diba? I see a lot of the collaboration in the NGO and civil society world, similar to what Ferdinand Bello said in the chat na collective collaboration with partners and NGOs in regards to climate change. So doon I see a lot of, and yung mga individuals, which is part of the quote-unquote private sector. Tuwing may bagyo, diba? Laging nagtutulungan yung mga tao sa social media, sa donations, sa rescue response even. But in terms of the government, we're seeing that it really lacks in terms of their action. Talagang nakikita natin ay mas band-aid solution na considering that they're the government, they are supposed to be able to do more proactive and more, they need to do more basically. Ang nangyayari usually with government, especially national government, mas disaster response and not how do we make sure it doesn't happen again. We're seeing a lot of collaboration with local government units, however, and private sector, and that one is more effective, pero it's limited to governments, to local governments na mas may kaya. So dun yung aspect na yung mga walang kaya as much na local government units, yung mga hindi kasing laki yung budget nila, naiiwan sila sa ere, and that's supposedly where the national government comes in. In terms of the private sector, in terms of businesses, we're seeing it's a similar thing na yes, nakatulong naman yung relief operations nila. Pero dahil yung private sector na businesses and yung government sila yung may pinaka, one, may tsapa dun sa nangyayari, and two, like may kaya, and sila rin yung some of the most responsible for the disasters. They really need to step up and do more.
As per
Alright. Yeah, go ahead.
observations po, there is collaborative effort especially between LGUs, because here in Kidapawan, I can observe na there's action that is done. There are multi-sectoral environment forums, canopy programs for tree growing activities. There are also relief operations that is happening, especially when there are disasters or emergencies. But it is but there are more efforts, especially on the non-government organizations, that when it comes to these kinds of advocacies po.
Thank you, Vingie and Mitzi. Sige, we can focus now on the questions that were raised in the chat. One of them was from Steve Assessor from the Manuel S. N. Verga University Foundation. He said, stop ecocide. Stop ecocide is a growing global movement that seeks to prosecute organizations, multinational corporations, and even governments at a scale equivalent to a war crime tribunal or prosecution of genocide actors. So how do we as a country leverage on this growing trend? So Vingie or Mitzi? I am Mitzi.
So napakagaling ng Stop Ecocide movement, no? And it's actually really interesting how some of the tactics that the global movement started here in the Philippines. I don't remember his name, pero there's a lawyer that Aposa yung last name niya. Lawyer that actually siya yung nag-start nung parang at siya yung ginawa niya to hold accountable legally yung mga environmentally destructive companies. Siya yung ginawang template ng global movement. So it actually started here in the Philippines. It is a difficult thing to have. It's something that we've been exploring. We were exploring rather during the previous administration. And then when we had the new administration, we did some cost risk analysis and decided to put it on hold. Pero it was something that we were considering, especially against single-use plastics. I think something that we can also leverage is how the Commission of Human Rights actually earlier last year released the National Inquiry on Climate Change, or NICC, and doon sinabi nila na and they recognize nila that multinational companies that have destroyed the environment and caused the climate crisis can actually be held legally accountable for the climate crisis impacts that we have. Next month in November, the UN Special Rapporteur on Climate Change is actually coming here to the Philippines, and we will be facilitating some dialogues with him so that we can push for an inquiry and investigation on the climate crisis impacts that's happening here in the Philippines. So very similar line of thought na talagang ibibida natin yung mga, not bida actually, i-expose natin yung mga multinational companies na nagka-cause ng ganitong stuff. And hopefully we can push forward that with actual tribunals or prosecution of these groups. But it is a bit hard with the context of the Philippine government and the Philippine justice system dahil na alam natin na we are one of the most dangerous countries in the world for environmental defenders and activists. So the political climate is a bit different. But yeah, thank you for the question. Ayan, si Attorney Antonio Aposa.
Yes, Attorney Tony. Thank you, Mitzi. Any thoughts, Vingie? Ano
Ano
mas
po, for how do we as a country leverage on this growing trend? So the simplest way, we collaborate, the youth collaborate, not only the youth, but everyone. You could engage to activities that promote this ecocide growing trend, and we practice in our own ways and how we help to grow this trend here in the Philippines.
All right. Thank you, Vingie. Yeah, may nakikita na ako maraming engaged sa chat because of our discussion. Pero there's also another question also from Steve. Unahin natin to. Are we sorry, walang pasakot. Are we utilizing global standards of accountability and quality to ensure that humanitarian and disaster preparedness activities will truly address the needs of the vulnerables? If none, maybe we can raise awareness that it's really available. Even international NGOs adhere to such standards. So parang related siya sa unang question about sa international or parang being part of the global community. So, ayan, meron ba utilization ng global standards of accountability? Anyone? Yes.
Sorry, nagkatata ka ng konti. Which one yung question ngayon?
Okay, sorry. So let me repeat that. Are we utilizing global standards of accountability and quality to ensure that humanitarian and disaster preparedness activities will truly address the needs of the vulnerables? Yeah.
I've seen a lot of civil society do this, pero it's also really hard for us to do it because there is no institutional and structural support. It's really interesting actually because the Philippines does have something called the People's Survival Fund, where local government units and civil society are supposedly able to tap into this fund during times of disaster. It's mostly for adaptation response versus like loss and damage or yung mga nasira at nasalanta. But it could still be very, very important and very interesting in terms of that accountability and in terms of that quality, kasi then you actually have like funding for that comes from these. I believe it comes from both the government budget but also like from taxes from the multinational companies. Pero hindi siya na-access kasi a lot of people don't know that it's a thing, and I've actually tried to find people who have actually been able to access these funds, pero I haven't found that. So if you guys know anyone, we're also trying to figure it out kasi it's something that we're really trying to get more communities to tap into kasi sayang siya, nandiyan na siya, existing na siya. Pero we've talked to local government units, I've talked to Congress people, and as far as we've seen, and it's also available online, this information is you're supposed to apply to it as a local government unit or as the civil society. Pero hindi pa nakita kung saan ba nangyayari yung bureaucracy, like where is it stopping. May mga nag-apply pero hindi mo sila na-replyan. So yeah, there's a lot to be done, and you're right in the question na we should be raising awareness for these standards and these measures that are already available to us kasi sayang nandiyan na siya.
Thank you, Mitzi. Vingie, would you like to also share?
For the global standards of accountability and quality. So there are initial orientations, especially here in Kidmako, Kidapawan, Marbel, and Cotabato, but we need to intensify it more. We need to raise more awareness about it po.
Thank you. You're talking about yung rights of nature naman na orientation. Yeah.
Yes po.
Thanks. Sige. Okay. There are questions pa that we can explore. So, na-mention kanina na yung top and powerful companies are the number one pollutants. So, how can we, as just common civilians or citizens, individuals, stay safe while we call them out for the environment? So, anong tingin niyo dito? How can we parang stay safe, be secure? Yeah. Yes, Mitzi.
I think we need to, first, it's really important that we focus on collective action so that we're not alone in doing it. In terms of social media, there's actually a lot that we can do. And I know it is scary. It is true that there is a danger and a risk, but it is something that we are able to do and we should do. The more of us that are doing it, the more na nakakaya. As YACAP, we also give out security trainings to our member organizations, but we can open that up to people and organizations that want to do this. But it's basically both just digital security and physical security and paralegal training. So that means just knowing your rights, really, because it is something that we can that we have. And if we do have a network of paralegals and lawyers that are on call. And so if this is something that our network needs to tap into, we're super happy to help and see how we can assist our young people. But in general, we do need to understand that while it is scary, there is a lot that we can do. And so we shouldn't let them silence us with with that fear. Intentional yun intentional yung pananakot din nila sa atin. So wag tayong manakot.
Okay. Vingie, you want to also share your thoughts on this? Thank you, Mitzi. Yeah.
So just like what Mitzi said, collective actions would do a lot of effect. So we're not alone in this fight. We will continue to advocate for the policy reform that addresses prevalent environmental issues, especially these big corporations that sources of a greater destruction. We push for climate action and support for a just transition toward a low carbon economy. So we will have collective action. That's it po.
Great. Yeah. So, going back to the topic of yung best or good practices, there was a question here from Ferdinand Sales. So, what climate change justice you deemed are best initiative and programs the Philippine educational institutions should actually implement so the young generations of students would imbibe in themselves awareness to help in the care for the environment? Yeah.
Something that we work with schools on, mostly senior high schools, ang nakawork namin, a little bit, some classes in university, some mga professors, are one yung contextualized experience and education on the climate crisis. So really talking about climate change's effects here and how hindi lang siya environmental issues. I've also seen some really good practices where hindi lang siya sa science class pinag-uusapan, pero pinag-uusapan rin siya sa social history classes. And I think that's really important so that we don't just get trapped in the idea of the carbon dioxide emissions, the science aspect, which is so important, but we talk about the people aspect and the systemic aspect as well. I think it's also really crucial to some other best practices that we've seen and pushing for ay yung pag-institutionalize talaga ng climate change education, na contextualize the Filipino experience into the curriculum. We were having dialogues with mga regional DepEds kasi mas madalis lang kausap. Kasi ang bagal ng national. Pero yun nga, nung nagkaroon ng regime change, nag-reset yung mga people, so contact building ulit. Pero yung sa national efforts, I believe, nakwento yun sa akin when I was starting out pa lang. 2012 pa lang nag-start na yung civil society. May tinatry nang i-push nun, pero tinatest pa siya or something, and then that means that that information from 2012 has not been updated also. So kahit matest na siya, tas yun na yung mapasa, hindi na rin siya updated dahil sa bagal ng ano. So I think it's also a crucial role of teachers to bring in new information. So that's what we do a lot now. We talk to a lot of teachers and they'll have us as guest lecturers, or they'll partner up with us to have young people do workshops. And I think it's really important actually kasi that way nakikita ng mga kabataan na hindi ko kailangan na maging matanda para may gawin. They see that there are young people in front of them doing things and that they can also do it. And I think it's really empowering to see that and to experience that.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Good to know that you're talking with the regional DepEd. Kabisi pa yung mga taga-national sa kanilang budgets. Anyway, Vingie.
So I'll go local po. Here, especially here in NDKC, we sustain orientations of rights of nature and environmental forum on Laudato Si, climate change mitigation. So since we are a school institution, we also have our community extension services, programs, and activities that involve students where we encourage them to join us to the advocacies that we are fighting for. We also conduct trainings regarding rights of nature and such. That's it.
Thank you. Sige, yung mga topics na na-bring up ninyo, just to parang pitch in na rin. Important for us to also bring in and talk to yung mga institutions that can actually include that in their curriculum or their di ba? What do you call this? Yung yun, yung learning parang structure kasi yun nga sa schools talaga yung na nagkakaroon sila ng ideas, and yung highlight ni Mitzi was all about yung experience ng climate action natin in the context of the Philippines. Tapos yung kay naman kay Vingie is the rights of nature. So this is parang two seemingly different topics pero they're parang somehow connected in a way na merong both of them are talking about change of mindsets then. Yeah, so I think parang from what I'm hearing, it's really parang maganda na youth yung nagli-lead dito kasi kapwa youth nila yung mga may influence sila to really look at things in a different way. Sige. And then there's another related question on this kasi from Ferdinand Bello naman. Would you recommend the education sector that educational institutions should have a roadmap for environmental sustenance governance for their actual implementation? What would you suggest if this is not recommendable? So, kita mo ba yan, Mitzi? Would you like to share your thoughts?
I think so. I think Grabe 'no, grabe. Naiinis lang ako ng very slight. Ang laki ng ginagawang responsibility sa educational sector when the government is supposed to be the one leading these initiatives. But, I mean, if kaya, I think the government needs all its help to push it forward to that direction. So we should. But I really think it should be more of a collaboration and a partnership between like the local governments. We have a lot of experience with mga barangay and yun mas okay talaga siya. I think the smaller scale and the more grassroots governments and governance is also a lot easier and a lot more efficient and effective. So I definitely think that that should be what we focus on. And that, you know, as the educational institutions create these roadmaps, the national government should also be creating and researching and putting support and into these educational institutions that are doing this, right? But instead, what we're seeing is there's a lot of budget cuts for education. There's a lot of mismanaged, not a lot of budgets that are being put into different things versus what it could actually be na mas helpful for the Filipino people. So there's a lot of like pressure that needs to be put on the government so that they start prioritizing things like education, climate education, etc.
Okay. And Vingie, would you like to answer also?
I also agree to Ms. Mitzi that
Uh,
we should not put too much pressure on educational institutions because it is something that the government should also work on with. But it is good that uh, there's a roadmap for environmental sustenance governance for institutions because education is powerful, and if we instill it to the minds of the students, it would be a great help.
all right. Sige. And one other question was from Miss Mayet Gasatan. So this one is a very interesting question for me. Well, how can your respective group contribute to achieving a balance between the well-being of people, the preservation of the planet, and the profitability of business? In terms of survival, ensuring access to basic needs is crucial. Additionally, businesses that provide employment and livelihood opportunities play a vital role in economic development, ultimately benefiting the community. Finding ways to harmonize these elements is key to sustainable progress. Okay, so let's explore that question about the balance though. Um,
I
yes,
think this is
please.
a very interesting question. Yeah. Um, sorry, I had like three parts nung answer ko, and I'm trying to figure out which one to say first.
Okay.
I think it's very important for businesses to listen to young people and experts and other civil society in terms of um yung accountability ng businesses. YACAP does not, our target audience is not businesses first, like as a group. Our target is more of holding accountable the businesses. We do have dialogues with some banks, pero it's not so much us trying to balance their profitability, but rather we're telling them that this is destroying our country and our people. And so you have to change. I think across the world, we're seeing more and more businesses tapping into civil society. And that's something that isn't talked about enough, is that these businesses aren't paying the experts and the youth, the young experts that they're bringing in to advise them on their climate sustainability. I think businesses should hire people that focus on sustainability, that work with them, and it's a long-term thing. Because one speech, one audience, one consultation is not going to change and create your business model. And I don't think it's the young people's responsibility to fix that for you. You are the ones doing it. You have to do it, and you have to care about it. It's good to have consultations so that you know that on track siya, but there should be people who are actually hired to do this. And so that way it also provides, as you said, like these green jobs that actually provide livelihood to young people and to young professionals that want to get more into environment stuff.
All right. Thank you, Mitzi. Sige, Vingie.
This one is hard. So for the businesses, I think since we live in a dynamic world where changes is inevitable, they businesses could adjust to what our nature needs right now, especially that we are facing climate change. I believe that they are what do you call this? They are flexible enough to adjust to 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 what we are facing right now, and the balance between the well-being of people. I believe that if you have the heart to protect the nature, it will not be hard for us to protect our nature, and let's promote and apply practices for sustainable development, sustainable lifestyle in general. I hope I'm making sense.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much, Mitzi at saka Vingie. So, um, hold on. Yeah. So, yeah. Sabi ko sa chat ni Mr. Ferdinand Bello, we know that climate change is quite alarming, so we need some orientation in the grassroots so we can address this issue. So I think the call is also parang do more of this kind of session for us to learn more about what are the issues at hand, especially coming from different perspectives, and parang we're parang highlighting yung involvement ng youth kasi so for the first session of the first day of the SOCDEV week, we're really looking into yung uh, what we in Code NGO are parang concerned about yung effects ng climate change, and at the same time anong tingin ng ating kabataan sa picking up from what Mitzi said, it's yung revolutionary generation. So di ba, parang saka yun we will be, as you said, the youth will feel the impact, or will parang have to face this longer than the ones who are a bit older. Who when kung kausap ko naman yung mga older people, they say na they don't know daw when they will be still here, ganyan. Pero we hope that they'll still continue to guide us sa kung ano yung kailangan gawin. Pero yun nga, yung ating youth, sila yung magiging yung sila yung magtatakbo ng mundo after some time. So yeah, so yun, I think we tackled the most great I was want to say we covered a lot of ground today. So I think some closing words from our speakers. Sige, Mitzi, please. Just to conclude our this Q&A session for today.
Maraming salamat po, Sir Gino, sa pag-facilitate. Tapos maraming salamat rin po sa lahat ng mga tanong, napakalalim ng mga naging discussion natin, di ba? Nakakatuwa. Nakikita yung level of engagement and interest and support really for youth groups. And it's really heartwarming to see na ang daming na ang lively ng chat, which isn't something that usually happens, I think. And the chat is like very constructive, and really we can learn from the chat alone itself. And so thank you to everyone who contributed to the conversation. I think that's how we address the climate crisis. Essentially, it starts there in that information sharing, that education, and really truly collaboration across sectors and across generations. So thank you, and thank you Code NGO for giving voice and platform to young people to talk about these issues, and for the sessions that we have like this. Because again, I think someone also said in the chat that information and education for the grassroots is so crucial, because that's really where it starts.
Thank you, Mitzi. Vingie, please.
Thank you for Code NGO for inviting us here. This is actually my first time to talk in forums like this, so I'm kind of nervous. So thank you, Miss Mitzi. I've learned a lot from you from this talk. Um, so the future is within us. What's happening in our nature is very alarming nowadays. So we should make an action uh, right now and be an environmental defender. So, thank you.
Thank you, Vingie. All right. Sige. And advance congratulations to you too. So um, uh, we are certain that what you shared to us this morning indeed need to take action now. Um, just to give us some of the highlights of what was discussed this morning. So we discussed about um, the effects of climate change shared to us by the Mitzi and YACAP's assessment or analysis. So we have minimal contributions to the global greenhouse gas emissions, and we are one of the most vulnerable countries tayo dito sa Philippines when it comes to the impact of climate. And then yung ating failure to adapt to climate crises can be linked to countries' colonial and semi-colonial past. Developed countries have the biggest responsibility to address the climate crisis since they contribute most to it. Now it's the youth's turn in the ongoing relay race to save the planet, and it's now more than ever very clear na they're sounding the alarm this morning to us. So if you haven't heard it, it's time that we heard it now. Then we have a systemic problem right now, so we need to pursue systemic solutions. Yeah. Climate justice is social justice. To bring about climate justice, collective action is the key. Then we also have the sharing of our youth advocate for the rights of nature. Nature has intrinsic value. So yeah, just like human beings, right? Nature should be recognized as a rights-bearing personality. Yeah. So this topic can also have actually both the climate emergency and the rights of nature can have a separate parang session talaga, and then we can set it up if you like. Kasi we set it up here in the SOCDEF so that Code NGO and members and the partners can learn more about this. And then we are seeing that we want to actually do more sessions like this so we can deepen our discussion on this. Just like what does it mean to to have the nature as a rights-bearing personality and assumed legal personality. Yan, yun yung mga tanong. I think hindi ko alam kung most of us will agree, but hearing from Vanji, that's what they're advocating. And Vingie pala. The nature has the right to exist and thrive, generate and flourish, and have habitat and maintain vital cycles. So humans must adapt their legal, political, and economic and social systems to be consistent with the way the natural order works. So yan yung perspective sa rights of nature. Differs from the prevailing modern industrial paradigm such that it does not view nature as property. It views human beings as co-stewards and co-keepers who should always strive to achieve harmony with nature. So it's a call to paradigm shift in the way we appreciate, treat, and behave towards nature. And it hopes to recover the paradigm of connectedness and interdependence or kinship with all nature in aspects of life and our social systems. Young people across the country are leading the Rights of Nature campaign, which are now being waged on the political front. So, yung having that rights of nature perspective will also impact yung how we take care of what we have and kind of address yung ating concerns sa climate change. And then also again going back to yung discussion kanina sa Q&A, Mitzi and Vingie really stresses out na have to act now. And because we're the ones who are really affected by this very pressing concern. So now I am honored to award certificates to our speakers. So help me give a Zoom clap to Mitzi Jonelle Tan. So this is a certificate of appreciation awarded to Mitzi Jonelle Tan of Youth Advocates for Climate Action Philippines, or YACAP, for the great contribution of knowledge during the eTalk hashtag Youth for Climate Justice, the future is now, co-organized by the Caucus of Development NGO Networks, held on October 16, 2023 via Zoom. So thank you, Mitzi. And also we want to award a certificate of appreciation to Vingie Dahan of Hiraya Youth-Kidapawan. Thank you, Vingie. All right. And we also have certificates for the respective organizations, YACAP and Hiraya Youth. So thank you very much. Before we end this morning sessions, thank you for your comments and your questions earlier. We're sure to have this recorded, and we'll want to pick up more from this, and we'll definitely use this for our next activities and programs. We have an evaluation form found in the link that's now posted by CAP. So you can claim your certificate for participation for this learning session. We value your thoughts and insights, and please answer the evaluation so we can know how we can conduct these sessions better. So the day just started with a bang, and we have more in store for you this afternoon and tomorrow. I'd like to take this opportunity to invite everyone to this year's hybrid public forum also on the 18th, October 18th. There will be a series of presentations from a panel of experts from various sectors. In the morning, on the 18th, and in the afternoon, there will be a simultaneous learning sessions that will cover topics viewed in a deeper perspective. Okay, so dahil tayo yung mga Filipino, kailangan may picture. So let's have a group photo. We invite you to turn on your cam if you can for a group photo. And see your beautiful smiles. So we have participants coming from all over. I see people from Bohol, from Bicol, even from Mindanao. All right.
All right, sige. I'll take the photo. We have 2 screens. All right, sige. And so post your bright smile this Monday. And hold your smiles lang in 3, 2, 1. Another frame. 3, 2, 1. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheena, and thanks everyone. So if you haven't registered yet and you want to go to our public forum, register by clicking on the link. Then we look forward to everyone's participation. And thank you again. It was indeed a productive and insightful session. May this session force be with you in keeping yourself and people around you informed about the impacts of climate change, and proves how essential the youth's role is in fighting and for fighting for and protecting the planet. Thank you, everyone. Ingat kayo. Thank you. Sige.